Human-computer interaction can be useful for those with disabilities. It is helpful for those who identify as hearing impaired, hard of hearing, or deaf. Human-computer interaction is the study of how people interact with computers and to what extent computers are or are not developed for successful interactions with human beings. Many computer users today will argue that computer makers, developers are still not paying enough attention to making their products user-friendly. Some may argue that computers are not accessible for those with disabilities. However, there are some accessibility options available for those with disabilities. It is true that the accessibility options are still progressing. Human-computer interaction is a key consideration when designing systems that are not only usable but also accessible to those with disabilities. The main goal of human-computer interaction is to provide safe, usable, and efficient systems to everyone. Any system that is properly designed with human-computer interaction, user-centered techniques and principles will also be maximally accessible to those with disabilities. Many people who identify as hearing impaired, deaf, or hard of hearing are being affected by computer accessibility. It is common for communication to be a barrier in a society that is dominated by quote-unquote hearing people. A guest lecturer, Tim Hughes, shares that there are several human-centered designs that take into consideration for human-computer interaction. Affordances, signifiers, mapping, feedback, and conceptual model. There are several accessibility features that are optional for access to computers. According to Interaction Design, one of the biggest focuses of interaction design is to reduce the negative aspects, frustration, annoyance of the user experience while enhancing the positive ones, enjoyment, engagement. I came across this interesting device on Facebook with the Forbes link, which included examples. I see what you say, which translates spoken language on a smartphone and it converts into text and sends the text via Bluetooth to remote user's device. This example demonstrates that the hearing impaired and deaf people can communicate with others without the burden of asking the speaker to repeat themselves or adjust how they are speaking. This fit well into the focus of interaction design. It simply brings joy to both groups as they could communicate with one another. However, closed captioning can be viewed as a frustration, annoyance, etc. There are a lot of steps to proceed for the closed captions feature to be turned on. Keep in mind it translates verbal communication into written format. For example, let's say you lose your remote, but there isn't a button on the side of the television to turn on this feature. Also, it is typically common for news channels to have the closed captioning come on at the bottom of the channel, where the messages are constantly being displayed. This accessibility feature still has a long way to go, regardless of the fact that it's been around forever. As proven, there are several accessibility options that can be good or bad for experience for the users. It is expected that all places will have closed captioning, considering that most people watch television, especially in public places, such as bars, etc. This is considered as mapping. But what is mapping? It's the idea that expectation that certain things will work in a certain way. It is expected that most places will be accommodating. Ironically, that is not the case. I discovered an interesting website, Interactive Accessibility, which shared an interesting example. National Association of the Deaf and Gogo LLC have an argument to provide closed captioning as a part of the in-flight entertainment services. As one can see, closed captioning is not easily accessible at all places. Often, there are places that do not give us feedback. Fortunately, with closed captioning, we can instantly see the feedback when the words appear on the screen. However, there has been progress in making things more accessible, especially for the deaf, hearing impaired, hard of hearing communities. As I came across an article, Interaction Design, I realized awareness is the key to social interaction. It is also essential to feedback. One must understand the importance of awareness. It's the idea of knowing what is happening. There are two different types of awareness. Peripheral awareness, which is the ability to maintain and update your surroundings, and situational awareness, which means to be aware of what is happening around you and to understand how information, events, and your own actions affect other events. In other words, it is important for people, as in designers, engineers, etc., to be aware that there is a community that are being affected because of an hearing impediment. The more we are aware of the problems, the more we can create effective solutions. It's essential that all accessibility solutions have feedback for the users, so they can be assured that they can use the computers in comfort. Human behavior that contributes to collaboration may divide as communication, share information, and coordination. Those collaborations were brought to my attention in interaction design. Those who are deaf typically do not know how to speak verbally. They rely on American Sign Language to communicate. Forbes shared an interesting example. A group of students at Rochester Institute of Technology's National Technical Institute for the Deaf who created Unique. It's a device that translates American Sign Language into speech and speech into text. This helps broaden the communication gap between people who do not know American Sign Language and those who do. This example correlates to communication as one of the important uses of technology. It is also essential to sharing information. Coordination can be productive if communication and sharing information are involved. This example had one goal: to communicate and share ideas with the quote-unquote hearing society. Because of these tools, this interactive tool became an effective solution. I hope that I have convinced everyone that human-computer interaction is essential to everyone to complete everyday tasks. However, it makes a bigger impact when it can be helpful for those with disabilities, especially those who identify as deaf, hearing impaired, or hard of hearing. It is my hope that there will be more accessibility features and technologies in the future. Also, it would be great if the current accessibility tools could be improved to better improve the user's experience.